Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to talk to you guys about something that happened to me last week. Well, last week and the week before, and the Lord just really used it to really drive home what he's been saying about the parable of the sower. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda Nicole, and I am rebuilding my life after divorce. I'm inviting you to join me on the journey. So we have been doing a Bible study on the parable of the sower, and the Lord really had something happen that he really drove home that point and just how important it is to him. So I'm going to tell you guys what happened to me. So my daughter is interested in acting. As a believer, you know, Hollywood is just absolutely not, we're not doing that. So I've been trying to find things that are faith-based for acting. Now, faith-based does not mean what it used to mean, and so even when I say I'm trying to find something faith-based, realize that that is very difficult because Christians have begun to compromise a lot, which is why we have so many issues in our world today, is that they're compromising. They get to a certain point and then they compromise, and then so they still have the name faith-based on their website or whatever, but they are not operating as believers. And so it can be very difficult when you do operate as a believer and you really are trying to hear the Spirit of God and follow his leading to do that, when you're trying to find things that are faith-based and people are just basically lying, saying that they're faith-based when they're not. And so it's very difficult, especially as a parent, when you're trying to be diligent and you're trying to, you know, make sure that your kids are following the plan of God for their life. Faith-based is very important. So I've been trying to find somewhere faith-based for my daughter. Okay, so she is doing acting classes already, and it is faith-based, but she's getting ready to age out of the acting classes that she has been in. And so I've been looking for something else, and I've been praying about it, and it's been a long journey. I've been trying different places, and everything I've tried has been just either red flags to the point where I never put her in there, or I put her in there to try it and it didn't turn out. And so it's really been a journey. And sometimes when your kids are asking for something and it's difficult to try to find what you're looking for, if you know that it's something that's not what they're called to do, you can just tell them no, like, we're not doing that. But if you know it's something that they are called to do and God has spoken to you about it, you have to try to stick with it, right? And so you have to try to ask God, send us where you want us to be. And so I've been looking for somewhere. So we had tried out a couple of places last summer, and it just did not work out. The kids it just wasn't a faith-based place. That was number one. Well, okay, let me go back. The place that the classes were held was a Christian school, and it's a Christian school that my daughter used to go to. So we assumed that the place was also Christian, and then we got in there and realized that the actual company that was putting on the classes was not Christian, and the students were not Christian. And so you can just imagine, you know, where that leads. And so that, you know, we did give it a shot. She learned some things, but it wasn't a good fit. Okay, so this year I was like, I'm gonna try again. Previously, I didn't even look for faith-based. I just was thinking, it was like a 1 week thing. And so I was like, well, we're just gonna try it out, see how it goes. Like, I really didn't even look to see if it was faith-based. I saw that it was at a Christian school, and I was like, okay. And so this time, after that experience, I realized, okay, I really do need to try to look for something faith-based. So this time I specifically looked for something faith-based, found a place, and was getting ready to try it out. Okay, so there were several red flags along the way, but this is an industry that I don't know anything about. I don't do any acting. I don't know anything about that. And so I didn't know, as a Christian, you just kind of don't know. Like, you want to do faith-based stuff, but as a Christian, you learn really quickly that it's very difficult to find things that are legitimately faith-based. And sometimes you feel like you're just going to have to, like, not do anything if you wanted to be faith-based, right? So sometimes there's certain things where you start to feel like, I'm going to have to eat the meat and spit out the bones. I'm not going to be able to find anything perfect, and I just have to find as close as I can to perfect. So sometimes you just kind of take that mentality, and that's kind of the mentality that I had taken the first time I was looking for classes. This time I was really trying to find something that was, better, that was really faith-based, because the dance place that she's in is 100% godly. Like the woman who runs that, I know her personally. She literally loves those kids with the love of God. She treats them like they are her children, and she literally prays for them. She partners with you as a parent to say, this is what I'm hearing God say concerning their life. This is what you're hearing God say. Let's work together. She really, truly, it is, when I say faith-based, that does not even do it justice. And because of that, it has played a huge role in helping to, help my daughter through the very difficult times that she's had to deal with because of this divorce stuff. And so I got to thinking about that, and I was like, Lord, if you could do that for her, for the dance purposes, there's no reason why you can't do it for the acting purposes. So I really began to pray and say, God, can you send us somewhere that is faith-based? Okay. So faith without works is dead. So I got busy trying to do what I can do on my end. Okay. So I looked up faith-based, acting places. I found a place, and they had a little like contact form or whatever. And so I filled out the contact form, and they had like a lady got back to me via text. And I was going back and forth with this lady, but it was like part of the time it was actually the lady, and then part of the time it was a chat bot. And we went back and forth for 2 whole weeks before I got anybody to call me and like say, discuss what kind of programs they had or anything. So it was like a full 2 weeks. And so that to me was a red flag, because I was like, if I need something from you guys while she's in your, acting place or whatever, is it gonna take you 2 weeks to get back to me? It didn't sit right with me. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna give these people the benefit of the doubt. You never know. So after about 2 weeks, I finally got somebody on the phone, and I was able to ask my question. So I asked them, first thing I asked them was, it says that you're with faith-based. Are you faith-based? Now here's the thing. Her response to me was, the owners are religious. Okay. If you know anything about that, when someone says that, that usually means one of two things. Number one, they hate Christians. It means that they've experienced some kind of church hurt or some kind of hurt by a Christian that wasn't really Christian. And because of that, they associate religious people with Christians, which are not the same. Religious people are the people who killed Jesus, right? Christian people are the ones who followed him. There is a big difference between the two. And so those kinds of people, when they say somebody is religious, that's what they're talking about. And they're right. That person is religious, but they also believe that all Christians are like that, and we're not all like that. So in other words, they're not Christian. Okay. So when she said that, that was like a red flag for me, like, because the lady who called me was one of the teachers at this place. And I'm thinking, okay, so you got to think, if you own a company, right, and you're a Christian and you want your company to be Christian, but you're hiring people who aren't Christian. I know a lot of people feel like, well, you can't discriminate, blah, 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 blah. But I'm telling you right now, in this day and age, especially when you are dealing with Christians, not Christians, when you're dealing with children, you really need to decide, does this person have the love of God in their heart and the fear of God in their heart? And if they don't, bruh, what are we doing? So when she said that was like, okay, strike one. And so I started asking her my questions or whatever about, their program and what they do and blah, blah, blah. And she seemed very nice. And so she was telling me, I was asking her, okay, can we do a trial? Because I usually, I won't sign my child up for something that does not do a trial. They have to do a trial, because when I'm talking about spending my money and I'm talking about putting my kids somewhere, I need to make sure we're good before I just commit to something. So I asked them, do they have a trial? And she said that they did. So we scheduled a visit to go and visit the place. Okay. So she set me up for the visit. Okay. Now she had told me what class my daughter should have been taking according to her age. But then when she sent me the confirmation for the visit, it was for a class of younger kids. And I was like, okay, why do we have her going to a class of younger kids when this is not her age group? So I messaged the little text message thing, and I never got a response. So that was another red flag for me, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to visit this class, but I'm visiting a class that's not the class that she would be in, so that defeats the purpose of doing a trial. So I was given that the side eye. Okay, in addition to that, the other problem is that when we went to go visit the place, she told me, now she did tell me this, but I'm thinking, what we doing? She was like, well, I'm out of town right now, and so I have a substitute teacher that's going to be teaching my class, but I'm going to be her teacher. Okay, again, why am I doing a trial with a teacher that's not going to be her teacher? I need to meet this lady before I commit. So again, these are things that I'm just like, it's just, if you've been here a while and you listen to the video where I was talking about the property management places, this is exactly what I'm talking about. There's always all this drama, all these problems, right? Things don't go smooth. You pay attention to those things. Pay attention, because we have a habit, especially as believers, that we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. We've all been saved by grace, and so we don't want people judging us, and we've all been there. We've all sinned and fell short of the glory of God. So we don't want to judge people. So we give people the benefit of the doubt instead of making them prove to us that they deserve for us to associate with them. And so we have to give regular lay people grace. But when you're talking about someone who is in leadership, when you're talking about someone who is going to be an authority over your children, they do not get grace. They need to prove to you that this is something that you need to sign your child up for. And I've had to learn that. I've had to learn that the hard way, because I'm a compassionate person, and I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't want to judge people, and I don't want to hurt people. And so I just tend to just hand out grace. And there's a time and a place for that. But when you're talking about a leadership position, no, it's a no. And so, but here I am, like, trying to give these people the benefit of the doubt. So we go to this class, and so there were two classes at two different locations. And so we had one class one day and then another class the next day. The first day class was the one with the substitute. Now, I sat there. Now, mind you, I was the only parent there, because all the other parents dropped their kids off. I'm not that parent. Like, I don't do a lot of dropping my kid off to stuff. So I was sitting there watching the class and watching what's going on. Okay, so I'm watching a lot of stuff. I'm watching the kids, I'm watching the teacher, I'm watching the activities, I'm listening to the side conversations, I'm watching with my spirit. And I saw several things that I really liked, but I saw several things that I was like, So one thing that I really liked is that my daughter had the biggest smile on her face the whole class. She really, really, really enjoyed the class. The class was a improv class, and she had never been to an improv class before, and she absolutely loved it. So that carried a lot of weight for me. That was a lot of brownie points for me to see her that happy and that excited the whole class. So that was one thing that I really, they did great on. One of the things that I didn't like was they played this game where they put some emotions in a hat, and the children had to pick an emotion and act it out and see if people can guess. So basically charades. All right, well, they're picking these emotions and they're trying to act out these emotions, and I'm seeing that they're not just happy, sad. They're complex emotions, which, okay, I get that, that's great. But one of the emotions that's in there, now mind you, the age of this class is ages 6 to 11. Okay, my daughter is 13. So again, I'm already giving y'all the side eye because this is not her class, but these are young kids, ages 6 to 11. And one of the words that they had someone acting out was lover. Why do we have children ages 6 to 11? Why are we even teaching them that word? More or less having them act it out. So that was a huge red flag for me. I was like, whoa, I was flabbergasted that was the case. When the child started acting it out, I was just like, okay, this is a little sus. But then when no one could guess it, of course they can't guess it. Thank God they can't guess it. When she told them what her word was, I was mortified. So that was the one thing that I was like, okay, that's not okay. The other thing is that when they had to choose some things that some details about things that they were going to act out. It was a lot of, let's do scary stories, let's do ghosts. Like, no ma'am. So I didn't like that either, because I was like, these are things that to other people is harmless, but to somebody who's a believer, bro, this ain't harmless. No, we're not doing that. So I didn't like that either, because I was like, some people, I don't know, I guess you just, for somebody who's trying to raise a child in a faith-based environment around other believers, especially if you're a homeschool parent, the kids that you surround yourself, that you allow your kids to associate with, they're like-minded. So there are certain things that are a no-no in my household. They're a no-no in your household. Like, everybody, we're all on the same page that this is a no-no. And so some things you deal with, no one's perfect. So you're always going to deal with things where you're just uncomfortable with. But when you dealing with faith-based, there are certain things that are just understood. And doing stuff about ghosts and haunted houses and stuff like that that's a universal. We're not doing that. So I didn't like that. And so those were some things that I was not okay with. So after that caused me to do some more digging, right? Because I was like, I want to know about the substitute. I want to know about what other kinds of plays that they put on, because I had already looked at their website to see the current plays that they were willing to put on, which I already was another red flag, because they had some that were like, okay, well, things like Willy Wonka and stuff like that. But they also had things like Beetlejuice, where I was like, again, these are things that in faith-based circles, we're not gonna have to argue about this. Ain't nobody finna do that. No Beetlejuice. We can argue about whether you think Willy Wonka is okay or not, but no one's gonna argue you down over Beetlejuice being inappropriate for kids. Like, no, we're not doing that. So it was just like, again, now that I'm looking stuff up online after this class, I'm finding more red flags, right? And so it's like, I'm trying to get this place a benefit of the doubt, but I'm like, the more I look into it, the more I'm like, I just can't, it just don't sit right with me. I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't like it. So this was the first day. So then the second day was at a different location, and the second day was the first day was more, like I said, was improv. The second day was musical theater. So it was the stage, the lights, letting them see backstage, all that, the glitz and the glam. And so we get in there, and one thing I noticed right off the bat that made me so sad is that after everything that I had seen with this place, knowing that they're basically not faith-based, it was packed. Okay? Packed to the brim with kids. And this place is almost $100 a month. So you can imagine how much money this place is bringing in. And it made me so sad, because I was like, I know people who are really faith-based and they're struggling financially. This place is running over with kids. And it just made me so sad, because I was like, if we had more faith-based stuff that had this kind of wealth, I wouldn't be struggling to find me an acting class for my child. So anyway, so I go into this place, and I right off the bat, as soon as I saw how packed it was, I was like, it's not going to work, because my child is very much of an introvert like I am, and this was packed. This was bumper to bumper, loud kids, and I just knew. I was like, yeah, this is going to be way too much. But we both, were fine with that, because it was an either or a both. Like, you didn't have to do both. And so we had already made up in our mind before she even went. She already was like, I'm probably not going to want to do this part of it. I'm probably going to want to stick with the improv. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but let's at least go look at it, because in case you do change your mind one time, you'll want to know. And so we went to look at this place. All right. So it was so loud in there. There was so many kids in there. But she gave us a tour of, like, the different stage areas, the different classrooms, the different things that they offer. They offer, like, piano lessons, voice lessons, dance, all kinds of stuff, and then acting. And so, we toured some of the classes and things like that, and saw the teachers interacting with the kids and that kind of thing. And so, really nice facility. very professional in terms of, you know, the costumes and, you know, it was well set up and everything. But I noticed that the way that it was set up, there were a lot of areas where kids could be unsupervised, and I didn't like that. You know, it was not, there's a classroom here, there's a classroom there, and there's a teacher in each classroom. In order to go from one classroom to the other, you're going backstage, you're going, you know, in this back area. So there was a lot of like space in between classrooms where kids are just walking around, right? They may be going to a class or coming from a class, but they're unsupervised. And the backstage area is just like a theater backstage. The lighting is minimal, and there's no one back there not supervising anyone, and they're having to go back here to get in between classes. So I did not like that. And that's another thing that I saw when we were interviewing places last year, as I saw a lot of that. They had the theaters set up like a real theater where there's a backstage and the lights are out, and that's fine for adults, but for kids, you cannot let these kids be unsupervised, because kids do not make good choices when there aren't adults around. So I didn't like that. I was like, you know, in this day and age with all of the exposures that are going on about people doing shady stuff to children, I want people who are incredibly diligent and vigilant about the safety of children. And when you have a lot of areas that are unsupervised and there's not an adult, there's not a teacher, that's just an accident waiting to happen. So I did not like that. So seeing that alone was like a hard pass for me, because you know, I'm the type of parent who I like to stay places, but the area that they had to wait for the parents to wait was in the lobby. So this is a huge facility, you know. You're not gonna be able to be everywhere unless you're just gonna like be inside the classroom. And you know, you don't want to put your kid anywhere where you feel like you have to. You maybe do that because that's just who you are as a parent, but you don't want to put your kid anywhere where you feel like you have to do that. Like if I gotta go step out and go to the bathroom or run up the street to the grocery store, it's not gonna be okay. Like you don't want to put your kid nowhere like that. So it was just a lot that I was like, Lord, I am trying. So at this point, you know, she was like in love with the first place, the improv place, and she had her heart set on going to that place. And I'm the type of parent where I had already said no to like 3 or 4 places, and of course I wasn't going to put her in there without, you know, if I felt like the Lord said don't do this. But at the same time, sometimes as a parent, you kind of have to ask the Lord to have your back and say, Lord, you know, we don't want to crush our kids' spirit, right? And there's a scripture that talks about provoking your children to wrath, right? As a parent, you're the final authority, you know, outside of God. And so you certainly have the authority to say, no, we're just not going to do it. But you don't want to make a habit out of that, because you don't want your children to, you know, like rebel, right? You want to make it easy for them to follow, you know, just as much as you want them to make it easy for you to lead. And so if you just no all the time, then they're going to start to feel like you don't care about what they care about. And so this was a particular time where I felt like, Lord, I think this needs to be a no, but I can see the look on her face. She's really excited about it. And I would like some help with this one. And God is just faithful. He's faithful. So I had kind of made up my mind that, you know, Lord, unless you really speak that just don't put your kid here, I'm going to try to give this place a shot. I don't think it's going to be good long term. The musical theater part is an absolute no, but I mean, I can sit and sit in the class at this other place and give it a shot. But I really just kind of feel uneasy about it, and I don't know why. And if there's a bigger reason why I'm feeling uneasy, I need you to reveal that. And I just kind of left it at that. So the very next day, I get a call from her dance teacher, and her dance teacher is like, I was praying for her, and the Lord said I need to have some time with her on this particular day. Now, this is a day that she doesn't normally go. And it's also the same day as the improv class. And dance is something, like, she loves her dance teacher, and it's something that she and I have already talked about, it takes precedence over other things. Like if someone calls and says, hey, is she available to do X, Y, or Z, and she has dance that day, I already know it's a no. She, dance comes first for her. And so I already knew when she asked me that, she was gonna want to kick the class to the curb in order to do that. Now, in addition to that, when we first went to go view the first class, I was telling her teacher about it, her dance teacher about it, and she was mortified. Just the look on her face was, this place is calling themselves Christian and they're doing this, and this. And so as I'm having this conversation with her, my daughter's watching the look on her face. So she sees that, okay, Mama's been telling me that she's giving this place a side eye, but now I'm seeing my dance teacher have the same look on her face that my mom had. My mom hadn't said anything, like, you know what I mean? So that was the first thing that had her kind of shaky, like, maybe Mom's right. Maybe this place might not be what I think it is. And so that already had planted the seed. And so, but at this time, the teacher didn't know that we were seriously considering the place, and she didn't know what day the thing was on. So when she said she was praying and it was on that same particular day, there's no way she could have known that except God. And so, of course, and she had a special opportunity for my daughter as well, or something that she was going to get to do as a result of this extra time with her. And so it was just God's way of saying, I got your back. I got your back. And so it all worked out. My daughter was okay with it. She still wants to do acting, obviously, and I'm still going to continue to pray for and look for a place for her. But she understood that wasn't the place for her, and she's okay with the decision to not do that. Okay. Here is where the parable comes. That was the whole, my arm going to get to my elbow for me to tell you this part. Okay. After the dust settled, I was in my prayer time with the Lord, and I was just thanking him, and I was just saying, God, thank you for going before me and making the crooked places straight. Thank you for speaking up for me and not letting me have to be the bad guy, and answering my prayers to kind of make sure that we didn't participate in something that, you didn't want us in. And his response to me was, because I was kind of like apologizing to him for even considering this place, knowing all the red flags that it had. Like, I just kind of felt like, Lord, I'm sorry that I even was going to consider this place, right? And his response to me was, yeah, I saw the red flags. I saw this, I saw that. He said, but my biggest concern is that you are okay planting your seed there. And so he wasn't talking about my seed of my child. He was talking about my money. Remember when I was telling you guys, when I was doing this study on the sower, that the Lord was really getting on me about where I plant my seed. And he was really talking about that. And so when I was asking him about this acting class that didn't have seemingly nothing to do with finances, his response to me was, I can't believe you were going to put your seed there. Because remember, you guys, when I went to go see the second place, and the first thing I thought to myself was, I cannot believe that they have this much money when I know people who genuinely love God and were trying to do what God called them to do, and they don't have any. So his response to me was, this is why they have all this money, because people like you who know they're not Christian, know they're not faith-based, know that you deserve better, are still putting your money there. And he was reminding me about the wealth transfer, because that's something that I've been hearing for a long time. And this whole time, I didn't know what that meant. And I was thinking, we're just going to have a lot of money in our account one day. But he was letting me know little by little that the wealth transfer is going to be more so like it was in the Old Testament. You remember in Egypt, when the children of God got ready to leave Egypt, and the Lord specifically told them, I want you to go to the Egyptians, and I want you to ask them for their gold. I want you to ask them, just basically ask them for their wealth. Now, here's the thing. You got to think about this, right? The children of Israel go to the Egyptians, and this is after the Egyptians have had plague after plague after plague, and there is nothing left. They are living in destitution. They don't have nothing to eat. Like, their animals have been destroyed. Like, they're barely hanging on to their health. everything has been destroyed and there's nothing left. It's a mess. And so they care a lot less about money now, because their basic needs are not even being met at this point. They're not caring about the wealth now. But in addition to that, though, you got to think about it. The Lord gives a word to the Israelites, but only to the Israelites. And the Israelites are the only ones that can hear God at this point. Like, the Egyptians aren't hearing what God is saying. And so when God tells them to go and borrow their gold and things like that, you got to remember, God has told the Israelites this, but he hasn't told the Egyptians that. So when let's say I'm an Egyptian and an Israelite comes and knocks on my door and says, hey, can I borrow your gold? I got bigger fish to fry. I'm not worried about that. But I also don't know that all of the Israelites are doing this, right? I'm thinking it's just Joe Blow from up the street that, babysits my kids is asking me, can I have some gold? Right? So I'm not thinking that this is a strategic way for God to take all of the wealth that your country has, right? They had no idea that that's what was going on. And so the Lord was letting me know, he was like, okay, the reason why the way that I'm going to handle this wealth transfer is I'm going to speak words to my children about not putting their money in that system. Like he's been telling us about thorny plants. He's strategically telling people to quit their jobs. He's telling people little by little. He's told people to take their kids out of public schools and little stuff like that. These little words that God has been speaking to his people, they're also tied to the wealth of his people. And so when we make decisions based on the words that the Lord is giving us, we're also redirecting the money. And that's what the Lord was letting me know. He was like, this is not just about making money. This is not just about spending money. This is about hearing me and following my leading, and that will be the way that your wealth transfers, because you are being more intentional about where you're planting your seed. And so the Lord was just letting me know that. He was like, it was like his way of saying, I've been speaking to you about this wealth transfer. I've been speaking to you about the seeds and the sower and the soil, and you're still not getting it. You were still going to go put your kids somewhere where you were going to be paying them almost $100 a month. Do you know how much that is? That adds up. And this is why they have such a huge presence and all of these children, that they're influencing their lives, but they're not influencing it for me. And so I have men and women who do have hearts to start genuine faith-based things, but they don't have the money. Why? Because you keep spending your money with the world. So that was like a way of the Lord really just hammering home the word that he had been speaking, that we've got to be more intentional about where we're planting our seed. We have to be. If he's going to do a wealth transfer and he's going to allow us to be able to have our seed blessed and have it multiply, we're going to have to put it in good soil. We're going to have to be intentional about doing that. And so the Lord was letting me know, he's like, you got to be more intentional. You really got to examine where you're putting your seed and say, is this good soil? Because if it's not, I'm not doing it. And so he was letting me know, he was like, if you would have made the decision about whether to put her in this place or not put her in this place based on the mindset of, is this good soil? Then you wouldn't have had to keep asking me, is this the right place? Because you know that you need somewhere that's going to be helping you. The Bible says that for us to train up our children the way that they should go, so that when they get old, they won't depart from it. Is this place involved in training children the way that they should go? No. It's teaching them the word lover. It's not saying anything about ghosts and letting them just do ghosts and haunted houses and stuff. Yes, is putting a smile on their face, but what is that going to do in the long term? What is that going to do in the long term when you think lover is okay? You think ghosts are okay? You think Beetlejuice is okay? What are you teaching them? Because you're not teaching them about God. And at the end of the day, they need that. They need that more than they need anything. And so if they're not doing that, if they're not following the mandate of God to train them up in the way they should go, then do they deserve your seed? And so the Lord was letting me know is that even as a parent, a lot of the decisions that you have to make as a parent, use that as your measuring stick. Is this good soil? Good soil, not okay soil, not this'll do, not for right now, good soil. Because remember, good soil is going to facilitate 30, 60, 100 fold blessing. It's going to allow the plants to flourish and not just grow. Grow is the bare minimum. They need to be able to flourish and multiply. Remember, we talked about multiplication. So the Lord was just really, really hammering that home for me. And I just wanted to share it with you guys and let you guys know that this is serious. We're expecting God to do a wealth transfer. And in order for him to do that, we're going to have to be able to do these things that are in this parable that we're studying right now in this Bible study. So hopefully the next time we are going to study the very last part about the good soil. In the meantime, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching today. God bless you on your journey to freedom. The version of yourself that you had to transform into to get into the get through the last season of your life is not the same version of yourself that it's going to take to get to the next season of your life. We have to learn that we have to learn to take assessments of our lives and look around and say, all right, this is what I've been doing for the last X amount of years, but I don't want to be in the place that I am now in the next X amount of years. And so what do I need to be doing differently